Am I an idiot for shouting at my ex in front of my daughters? I, male 37, have 3 girls, 8, 10, and 12. Their mother walked out on us for another man when our youngest was around 4. My ex still stays in contact, though, and pays child support. A few weeks ago, while doing laundry, I saw red spots on my oldest's underwear. I asked her if she knew about it, and she cried and told me she tried to call her mom. But my ex didn't call back. She'd been stuffing toilet paper in her underwear, hoping that would work. I explained to her that periods are nothing to be ashamed of, and found some great resources online for us to review together. I took her to the store to pick out brands of feminine products she wanted to use. She picked Playtex Sport because she's a gymnast. After we were done, I decided I should do the same thing with my other 2. My 12-year-old volunteered to be part of preparing them, and we made a whole night of it. It was wonderful, and I learned a lot. I even learned what a menstrual cup is, and how they benefit the environment. The other day, my ex called back. I'll usually arrange a video chat and leave the room so they can have some alone time, and when they're done chatting, I'll come back in to talk about boring co-parenting stuff like school, bills, etc. This last time, my ex was furious with me for talking about periods with the girls. She shouted at me that I was sick and perverted. Why didn't I call her myself if I knew it was so urgent? I could have called one of their grandmas, aunts, but my mom has dementia, while her mom and sisters call me a loser because I teach kindergarten, so I'm not fond of them. My ex told me I was being immature and should have just toughed it out for the girls. This really pissed me off, so I shouted back that maybe if she wasn't such a deadbeat and answered her goddamn phone once in a while, she could have handled this. I brought up everything she does that hurts them. She hasn't been to a single soccer game, piano recital, or gymnastics meet in 2 years. Every other weekend when they come home from her house, they go straight to their rooms, only to emerge hours later asking me why she loves her new husband more than them, and what did they do to make her leave. My ex responded by saying I should tell them it's not their fault I couldn't satisfy her, and I screamed fuck you. And she just smirked and pointed behind me, saying look what you did when I turned around. My 8-yo and 10-yo were standing in the doorway crying. It broke my heart. I never shout, so I know I scared them. My 12-yo stormed in and started screaming at her mom, and while I appreciate her sticking up for me, this is not a battle I want her fighting. My ex hung up before I could fully de-escalate the situation, and let's just say the girls have been given free reign of the ice cream and limitless hours of video games, because I feel so bad. I even watched all the Twilight movies with them, so don't say I don't love them. But in this instance, am I the idiot for shouting? It's been almost a month since my original post, and a lot has happened since then. Many of you asked for an update, so here goes. Last weekend, the girls were at their mom's. After she dropped them off Sunday night, my 12-yo asked to talk to me in private. We went into her room, and she showed me 2 recordings she'd taken on her phone. One of my ex trying to convince them I was abusing them, and one of her and her husband arguing about how much she was paying in child support. And I'll be honest here, my cousin is a family court lawyer and basically raked her over the coals. It wasn't pretty, but I was still extremely hurt over the affair. I even got alimony. Anyway, my 12-yo told me she didn't want to go to her mom's anymore, but she said she felt she had to because she's the oldest sibling and it's her job to protect the younger ones. I've always instilled this value in her. I'm an oldest child myself, but seeing this just made me even more upset, because now it's just another battle she's fighting that she shouldn't be. She's also just started to figure out that her mom cheated, and over the past couple weeks she started firing tons of questions at me about the timeline of their relationship I couldn't really answer. And after showing me the recordings, she literally demanded I answer her, yes or no, did her mom cheat on me? It wasn't easy, but I told her the truth, with the promise she wouldn't tell her sisters. As much it sucks, that's my job, not hers. The way she cried on my shoulder was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever experienced. But she was catching on, and I figured if she's going to find out regardless, it should be in a setting where she's comfortable. After she was done crying, I told her to email me the recordings she took, and called my cousin. We've just started the paperwork, but my cousin is certain we can get my ex nailed for parental alienation, and since she got a promotion a few months ago, I should be able to renegotiate the child support payments as well. Most importantly, the recordings should be enough to give me grounds for supervised visits only, which is what I want. I still want the girls to have a relationship with their mom, especially since the younger 2 still want to see her. I'm just going to have to make sure I'm present at all times when they're with her. Co-parenting is oodles of fun, kids. Anyway, I also want to give a huge thank you to all the supportive comments and messages. I only saw most of the DMs recently because I use the Reddit as Fun app on my phone and for some reason it doesn't show chat room messages. I'm not the best with technology, seeing as my most valuable job skill is herding 5-yos, but I wouldn't trade it for any other career. Thanks for all your support, Reddit. Not an idiot. I gave you the perspective I had as a child in a similar situation in your original post, and I will again. I'm also an eldest child and took on that protector role until the anxiety finally broke me down. I used to have panic attacks on the Friday my father would come to pick us up every weekend until I refused to go. Being the protector and shield, punching bag is a heavy burden to bear. If your eldest isn't already in therapy, I think she should be. Check in with her often. I doubt she'd give up the mantle of protecting her younger siblings, but she's gonna need support from you to make sure she isn't hurting herself or getting worn down or blaming herself in the process. I hope supervised visits will be the way going forward for you. Good luck. Did this father take it too far? Let me know in the comments. You won't want to miss this next story. Am I the idiot for raining on my cousin's parade regarding the name she picked out for her baby? My cousin Stephanie and I are really more friends than relatives. An important note is that that she's not really online much, so can be out of the loop on certain memes and jokes in internet culture, and TBH, doesn't really understand the concept of viral internet references or how they work. Stephanie is pregnant and just found out it's going to be a girl. About a week ago, she told a gathering of her best girlfriends that she's going to name her daughter Karen. The room instantly went cold, but after an awkward silence, everyone else politely said it was lovely. I couldn't bring myself to respond at all. Later in the evening, when Stephanie was out of the room, everyone was immediately like, OMG, that poor kid, and why would she pick Karen of all names? I was uncomfortable with this conversation, given that everyone had been so positive about the name to her face. I thought more about it over the next couple of days, and just felt really weird about the whole thing. The name is really loaded, to the point it could be detrimental to the baby, and Stephanie had no idea of the connotations to make an informed decision. So a couple of days later, I tentatively brought it up. I told her I was so excited for the baby, and just wanted her to have all available information when picking a name. I then started to explain that Karen has some negative connotations and has become sort of an internet joke to describe a specific kind of entitled middle-aged woman. Stephanie instantly was furious and started talking over me, saying, "Why are you saying this? This is so mean." I was really surprised by her reaction. It felt very, very out of character, so I immediately stopped and said, "I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I just wanted to tell you something I thought you might not know." She replied, "That's the name I picked for my daughter, and you think I picked it as some kind of joke. I don't understand why you'd say something so hurtful." When she said that, I felt like it signaled that she didn't really understand what I was trying to tell her. So after agonizing for a second about whether to press the issue even though she was so angry, I felt like in for a penny, in for a pound, and since she was already mad, I wanted her to at least understand what I was trying to explain to her. I googled Karen Know Your Meme on my phone and tried to show her the screen of results while saying, "Look, I'm just saying that there's more meaning to the name than you may realize." She stood up, pushed my phone away, and shouted, "Wow." She then stormed out of my home and drove away. My aunt and mom have been berating me all week because Stephanie told them that I made fun of her baby name. Stephanie has not spoken to me or responded to my texts since. I can take a hint, and I'm not going to broach a topic again that caused so much distress, but I keep going back and forth on whether I was taught here by bringing it up in the first place. Edit. Thanks, everyone. I have been properly schooled, and I accept my judgment that I was taught here. Stephanie and I have a history of being extremely open and honest with each other. I was the maid of honor in her wedding, which we planned on being the case from a young age, and we always joked as teenagers that part of my duties would include talking her out of the marriage if the groom she picked sucked. And so maybe I was too flippant with approaching this topic due to our history, and was unempathetic and underestimating how much she was already invested in the name she chose for her future daughter. I admit I'm a bit frustrated that Stephanie still doesn't understand what I was trying to tell her. She still thinks I was making some kind of weird, cruel joke accusing her of picking the name as a joke. But I have messaged her a sincere apology that she accepted. And I will never speak of this again to Stephanie or baby Karen. I'll also stand up for Stephanie if her other friends shoot and talk about the name around me again. If they're not willing to voice their thoughts to Stephanie directly, they need to not say the kinds of things they were saying behind her back. Edit 2. One more thing. I definitely was not trying to tell Stephanie to not name her daughter Karen. I just wanted her to make the decision either way knowing the connotations, since I'd want someone to do the same for me if I picked a baby name with cultural baggage I wasn't aware of. I realize now I handled it poorly and was hurtful to Stephanie in the process, but I just wanted to be clear that I wasn't actively trying to talk her out of the name. I just didn't want her to be blindsided if it came up later. Update. Baby Karen was born healthy and happy back in October. She's an absolute sweetheart of a baby, and I'm totally in love with her. Between March and May, I didn't get to see her at all in person, but I was doing regular FaceTime, house party calls with Stephanie and Karen, and over the last few weeks, I've been going over to Stephanie's house to sit in her backyard and chat with Stephanie, coo at Karen from a lengthy distance. I have two reasons for updating. First, I've realized since Karen's birth that her name has taken on new meaning to me. When I'm with her, Karen just means her, and I don't think about the other connotations. In other words, you guys were right. That said, though, my second reason for updating is that Stephanie got back into her years unused Facebook at the beginning of the pandemic to keep in touch with people. She's been on it pretty regularly lately for the first time in years. Historically, she's not really been into social media. Most people in our area, social circle have been posting really heavily about BLM and the protests happening right now, as well as racial justice issues more generally. As a result, Stephanie has now come into contact with a deluge of Karen memes for the first time, and found them confusing and horrifying, especially the use of Karen as shorthand for a racist. I've basically just declined to talk about it with Stephanie, because it went so poorly last time. But both my mother and her mother have hounded me about it because it's upsetting to Stephanie, and said things like, "Is this what you were talking about before? Why didn't you say so? Why didn't you explain it better? You should have told Stephanie." And Jesus wept. You really can't win. Thanks again for all your feedback on my last post. It was very helpful in giving me some zen about the situation. Edit. Wow, I've been super overwhelmed by the flood of very kind, heartfelt PMs, and just one or two not so kind ones, as well as the comments on my other post. Thank you, everyone. It continually amazes me how many nice and empathetic people frequent a sub devoted to assholes. You're an idiot. You really think it's going to matter when this kid's older. It's a meme. Oh, and for anyone pregnant or planning to have kids, this is why you don't reveal the name until they're born. Someone's always got something stupid to say, no matter what. You're the idiot. I'm aware of the Karen meme, but come on, it's a totally normal name. I can't believe so many of you would take a meme so seriously. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for not making coffee how my fiance wants me to? I, female 23, no, but this has been a point of contention for a while. My fiance, male 25, is a foodie and is extremely particular about a few things, one of them being coffee. We use a manual grinder, get distilled water. The water in our area is really hard and according to him affects the taste. But I don't notice anything, and we have an AeroPress and a metal coffee filter to make the coffee. I'm very much not a foodie, unless being a Sour Patch Kids connoisseur is a thing. My fiance weighs his coffee beans to make sure that he's using the exact right amount. Changes the setting on the coffee grinder depending on whether he's using the AeroPress or the metal coffee filter. Measures the water, and if he's using the AeroPress lets the coffee grounds and water brew for a certain amount of time before actually making the coffee. On the other hand, I use a scoop to measure my coffee beans. Use whatever setting the grinder is on. We'll usually just use tap water. Eyeball the water instead of measuring it, and don't let it sit to brew. And you know what? It's fine. It tastes fine. It makes me happy. The end. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Problem is that this really bothers my fiance. We've had multiple arguments about me making my coffee wrong. And it's very normal for him to badger me, weigh my coffee beans or switch the coffee grinder to the optimal setting while I'm making my coffee. If I'm making coffee for him, sure, I'll measure the beans and all of that jazz because I know that he can taste the difference. But I don't think that I should have to jump through all of those hoops for something that doesn't affect him. On the other hand, he seems to be really bothered by this. Today, as I was trying to scoop coffee beans into the grinder, he reached around me to put the scale he uses in front of me and asked me to please weigh my coffee beans. I was really frustrated because we've had this conversation so many times, so I snapped the word no at him, and he walked away and muttered "you, too," saying that even though I hadn't said it, I'd definitely been thinking "fuck you." For the record, I wasn't thinking that. So am I an idiot for not making coffee how my fiance thinks I should and for sometimes snapping at him when he gets pushy about it? Edit. I don't know if this is important, but I drink decaf and he drinks regularly, so I'm never making coffee for both of us. I'm either making coffee for him or I'm making coffee for myself. Edit 2. I sat him down and told him that I needed him to never comment on how I make my coffee and how I was making it. He repeated it back to me in his own words to check that he understood me. A counselor once told me that this is helpful to do in an argument, and then he agreed. Edit 3. Okay, people keep bringing this up. Google an AeroPress because I don't feel like explaining it. Basically, you push on a phallic symbol until you have coffee. Putting hard water through it does not damage it. As much as my fiance drives me crazy, I would never do something to damage his equipment because it's important to him. Now for an update. So it's been about a year since I made this post. Whenever I read posts like mine on here, I'm always wondering, did Opus leave that idiot? So for those of you who care, I left that idiot. A lot of you were on the nose that this wasn't the only way that he was controlling. My ex believes that he's the smartest person in the room, so if you're doing something differently than how he would, then you're doing it wrong and must be corrected. I'm not saying that everyone's responses to my post gave me a revelation and I immediately knew what I had to do, but it was a nail in the coffin. I'm living within an hour of my parents now when before I was on the opposite side of the country. I have a job as a caregiver and I'm planning to go to grad school to be a social worker. I have a boyfriend who doesn't try to control every aspect of my life. When I go grocery shopping, I'm not stressing about accidentally buying the wrong brand of pasta, which was the right brand of pasta when we lived in a different state. I still don't get that. Or juice that's from concentrate. And I've switched to pre-ground coffee because frick you, I want to. None of this would have happened if I'd stayed with him. So yeah, thank you to everyone who played a tiny role in helping me see what an unhealthy relationship I was in. Not an idiot. Congrats. How did X take the breakup? He'd seen it coming and had been casually telling me that I wasn't mentally stable enough to make any major life decisions. And when I broke up with him, he doubled down on it and said that I was doing this because I needed therapy. He maintained